Hello and welcome to another class, which is our practically first week of content. Today we're going to work more and discuss more on the introduction to research. Basically, we will try to answer questions like, what is research? What is considered a good scientific research, and what does it mean? This will be a sort of our gateway to just brainstorm the idea of research and prep us to the different steps that we're going to take throughout the semester. So our discussion today will start with this outline of what is research, the nature of research, and these are the components of the nature of research, classification of education research, different types and designs, and I'm going to tell you exactly what are the types and designs that we'll focus on this semester in this course, and it should be the overall idea of research. And as an emphasis that I want to emphasize right now is that you're understanding that this is an introduction. We're going to try to cover a lot of the different types and the different designs, but we're not going to dig really deep into many aspects, and we'll leave this to the action research, but this is a good prep for you for your action research class. So hang in there. Many of you have taken some research classes and different courses, as I read in your introductory entries on Blackboard. However, this is going to be more rigor, and it's going to be more towards graduate studies expectations. So what you're going to learn now is something that you're going to take away with you, maybe if you decide to do your PhD. So we'll prep you for your thesis, action research, for your master's program, and then it should be both these courses should prep you if you decide to do your PhD, or even just write an article research. You never know. So let's hang in there. It's not going to be a very easy content to digest, but if you do what you're supposed to be doing, reading the chapters as much as you can in the right timing, do not delay anything as much as you can. Again, I understand that all of you are professionals who are working during the day, so bless your hearts. You have kids and all of that, and going through this myself, I know how hard it is, but it's doable. It just needs a lot of determination. And with the online class, yes, it gives you the leisure of time because you're working through a duration of 1 week. You start on a Tuesday, we finish on a Monday, and you have this week to pace yourself. So say, for example, on Tuesday you want to start reading the chapters. On Wednesday you're going to view the videos or the lectures that I posted for you under that week, and then maybe Thursday and Friday, kind of look at your discussion board and maybe draft something, and then in the weekend you want to write your discussion board and post it. So if you divide the work this way, on a 1 day or a 2 day type of thing during the week, this way it will help you by Monday to have your stuff submitted on time, and rather than waiting until you start on Sunday to do everything, which kind of crumbles you and makes it very anxiety related more than a learning journey. So try to do that, try to plan your time, and I understand that you will do your best. So yes, it will not going to be an easy journey, but it will be a smooth one, I guarantee you. And because of the organization of the course itself, I'll try to do as much as I can to have it organized for you, so we'll make it smooth. Yes, the content is heavy, but as long as we have a smooth ride, then it's going to be good to go. Keep communication on if you have any questions. So today we're going to cover this introduction, but also touch base on what are the steps that we're going to learn about during the semester and to understand how to write a research. So that's in the classification. So introduction, nature of a scientific research, and then the classification of the steps. Okay, so let's begin with an introduction. Basically, research is very important, as I told you, for you to build understanding of your content area. And it is important for many of our graduate students because you're going to take this and develop. Through this course, you're going to learn how to write a research proposal. You'll take this proposal to build on it when you go to the action research and learn how to extend this idea and actually collect data and find results and report results in your action research. This enhances your learning about your content area and enhances your understanding as a graduate researcher, graduate student, and this differentiates you from undergrad student or a student that only took certification in a specific area. So as a graduate with a master's degree, it is very helpful for you to understand what is a research, what are the different types of designs. For each design, what are the components and elements that I need to write to make this design a valid research. So as you can see how important it is for you as a graduate researcher, as someone in the education field, to write a credible content or field-related discussion and data-driven results. And of course, this hard work that you do contributes at the end to the field, to the education field. Many of our researchers here in the education department or in any other education department, their researches are taken towards reforming education in their countries or in the counties or school reform, local school reform. So researchers in the education field really have a direct impact in developing the field. So this is how important your research can be. So that's basically the point, all the points that I just discussed right here. And I don't want to be redundant. I didn't want to read through the bulleted points, but you have it there. For you to read. This last point is very important. The results of research must always be subject to constructive criticism. So as a researcher, if I say you're a student researcher, you go through a lot of discussions with your professors in order to develop your research writing. So that's why we start with a draft, then a proposal, then after you're approved with your proposal and every element is discussed and you have the components that you have to have, then you get the green light to start to collect data and have results, and then you discuss these data and results, and once you have the green light, then it's published. So that's as a student. Now, as a professional researcher, we also do something like this. We write a research with the collected data and everything, but before it's published, it has to go through a channel of reviews, and once it's accepted and guaranteed as a credible research based on a scientific method, which is something that we're going to discuss today. What is a scientific research? What is a credible research? Once it's approved, it is published. So research is always criticized, and it's always reviewed, and it's always checked for its credibility, and this is a part of the process of producing a scientific research. So what makes it a scientific research? What is the nature of a good, credible research? It's all of these points. It has to be empirical. It has to be systematic. It has to be valid, reliable, and it can take a variety of forms, and these forms are design-based. So we'll take each one of these and understand the meaning of each one of them. So what is empirical research? And empirical research is this sense of practicality. It went through a specific experience. I went to the field and I practically collected data and experimented or explored this this research. So I just didn't sit at my desk and imagine things, but my research is empirical because it's related directly to the field, and it interacted with a specific kind of experience, either observation or actually immersed in the field itself, or interviewed, or some sort of interaction. Okay. Researchers work upon data. This may involve organizing them, generating them, and testing them. So in order to have an empirical research, you have to experience some sort of field experience and discuss it. But not only that, but you really have to make sure that you're organizing your data that's collected, or that you're collecting, and the results that you are coming up with under specific organized process that follows the elements of a research. And again, what do you mean by elements of research, and what do you mean by organizing my research? These are the things that you're going to learn about in this course. So you're going to, right now, you're understanding theoretically what is a scientific research, but then you're actually going to explore and experiment this throughout the research, throughout this course, by writing an empirical product at the end. Also, a good research has to be systematic, and by systematic I mean having this process. You have to follow specific steps in order to have a good scientific, credible research. You can't just go to the field. I just experimented here and there, talked with people here and there, and observed, and then wrote something, and that's my empirical research. No, you really have to follow a specific protocol. The protocol gives you minute details into how you're starting from the very beginning of this idea in my head. I really want to research it, all the way to how can I write or report these results. So this is how systematic it is. You can't just haphazardly write a research and say that this is an empirical, credible research. Yes, it has to be empirical, but also it has to be systematic. You have to follow the protocol and the steps of writing a research. Again, this is what you're going to learn about. To make research systematic, researchers use the approach of scientific inquiry and scientific method. So that's exactly what I was talking about. The scientific method is the process or the sequence of steps that you have to follow. And the scientific inquiry is how you do collect data, and how do you analyze and interpret data. That's the inquiry itself. It's like, how do you entangle information in a scientific manner? Okay, I have a lot of data. There are a lot of things that I want to collect. How am I going to collect it? Scientifically, I'm going to find this inquiry by collecting data this way. Scientifically, I'm going to inquire answers and find results by interpreting these data in this manner. So that's scientific inquiry. But the scientific method is the method and approach that you use throughout the system of writing the research to make sure that you're following the correct steps and protocol that you should follow. So scientific method or steps are really related to our modules. I design my modules based on the scientific method. So the first thing you have to do is to think what interests you. Okay, from that interest, there's something that really makes sense to you or doesn't make sense to you, and you really want to question it and dig deeper to understand it more. This scientific thinking leads you to a specific problem or a statement of the problem that you want to discuss and question or research. So you found something, you're going to state where is the problem in your field, and from that problem you come up with a question or a couple of questions or a set of questions that you want to research. Then after that, you review information from other people. What did they think about this problem? Other researchers, what did they think about this problem? So, for example, I have a problem about diverse students learning, or diverse students come from different cultures. So diverse cultures using the same strategies and methods that we use in a regular classroom, general ed classroom. How does culture make an impact on their preferences of using a specific strategy or a specific method? So that's a problem. I found that this is a problem. I created a question. Now I want to go and review some literature about this idea. What is out there in the research? So I read articles that has a relation to my problem or my questions. After I do that, I want to show the uniqueness, of course, of my research. How is my question different, or the way I'm going to tackle these questions or problem different from the others? Maybe the others did exactly the same, but I have a small piece that is different that I want to add to this area. So that makes my research more unique. Okay, so the problem, the questions, the literature review and finding where my uniqueness is. And then I start to collect data. That's another step, which is identifying how do I want to collect data on this topic. Do I want to interview people? Do I want to observe students? Do I want to do both? This is my data collection. How I'm going to collect data exactly. And then how am I going to analyze this data that I had just collected? And then what kind of conclusions do I draw, or what kind of results that I want to report? Now I want you to remember, for the purpose of this course, it is only a proposal that you're going to write. So you are not required to go to the field and actually interview people and collect the data. You're just going to tell me, we're going to stop at how do you think the best way to collect data for your topic. So we're going to do all 5 steps or 4 steps, if you may, but then at the end we're not going to write results. You're just going to write a conclusion about what you think will happen or might happen, or what do you think your research value lies in. Where does your research value lies in? So these are, if you do these steps and if you understand that these are the elements of a research design, and then each element has different components under different designs, if you do that and if you follow this structure, then you have a scientific, credible research design. So far, so good? Okay. And of course, if you have any questions, what I'm going to post under discussion board is asking you basically, what did you understand, what you did not understand, and what are the key terminology that you take out from this introductory about a scientific research. What are the different new terminologies that you've heard, or maybe key terminologies about research, scientific research. So here's an image that I included for you to understand that a scientific research has to follow steps. So now we introduced to you why is research important, and then we talked about in any research, a good credible research, it has to be empirical, it has to be systematic, following a specific protocol with scientific inquiry and scientific method, and that there are key steps or elements, I will call them throughout the semester, key elements in any research design that have to be included in your research. And these steps are embedded in them, the elements. The steps are to think this way, and the elements are to write the problem, the questions, the data collection, the data analysis, and a conclusion. A conclusion for the proposal will be just concluding your thoughts, but a conclusion for an action research is actually reporting your findings. Okay, is this clear? Please ask any question. Again, it's gonna, you'll have a place in your discussion board to ask questions, and it's really, don't be shy to ask questions in the discussion board or raise an area that you think it's a little bit vague, because maybe others thought this way and they just didn't know how to verbalize it. So when you verbalize it, they'll say, oh yes, I really have the same question, I just didn't know how to say it. Or your question might actually raise even better discussion than what I have for you in the discussion board, and we find ourselves finding more aha moments. So there's no wrong question, there is no stupid question. Please feel free to ask any question, and always make sure that our discussion board is a safe environment. So when you have a comment for a colleague, make sure that your comment is kind and polite, and not degrading from any of your colleagues' thoughts. We all come from different backgrounds, we all come from different experiences, and we want to embrace our differences in order to elevate our thinking. So as I said, we talked about the introduction, the components. It has to be empirical, systematic, and follow scientific method inquiries. And we talked about the steps. And the other thing is it has to be valid. So the third thing is validity, and then the fourth will be reliability. Now, what is the meaning of validity? Validity means that it's actually, well, there are two kinds of validity. There is internal validity and there is external validity. Now, internal validity refers to how well detailed your research writing is. So when you talk about the data collection and you're going to say, I am going to interview people, if you just say this, then there's a very big component of internal validity is missing, because you really want to give me minute details on who are you interviewing, how are you basing this decision of who are you interviewing, and why are you excluding others, and how are you actually going to interview? Are you going to tape record? Are you going to videotape? If you are videotaping, are you having permission from the person? So all of these details comes under just the word interviewing teachers. If you don't have these kinds of details, then your internal validity is missing. You cannot justify, if I'm a person who's reading your research and I saw that I'm going to interview 10 teachers, and that's it. If I read it, I'll say, well, if I want to do this research and I want to extend on this research, I want to really know, why did you choose these 10 teachers? How did she choose these 10 teachers? How did she really interview them? What kinds of questions did she ask them? All of these details, if they're not there, then I cannot extend to you in your study, and maybe there are question marks if what you've interviewed is real or actually valid in the discussion. So all of that raises a lot of question marks, and hence your research is not valid. So in order to avoid this kind of lack of internal validity, you really have to make sure that you have sufficient details, not just any details, but sufficient details, so that the person who's reading really understands why, how, and when did you do such a thing. Okay, and maybe I can extend, or if I don't want to extend, at least I understand and really believe what you're saying. Like, for example, if you tell your students, if they're answering an equation, a math equation, and they just put the answer for you, is this a valid answer? Can you give them a final grade? No. Why? Because they did not include the details that tells you, as a reader, as a person who's checking the answers, how or why did they come up with this answer. So that makes it an invalid answer. Okay, so hence the internal validity. Now the external validity is the generalizability of your research. So in other words, again, it adds to the details, but it really tells me if I can extend the answer of your research to all, if I'm doing my research again on these students and I picked a few students in this country, my details in the internal validity, why did I choose these students, will help. When I say if it's generalizable or not, I will say it's generalizable for only students who have this situation and who live in this area. So this makes my internal validity and the details that I provide highlights where the generalizability can be valid. Hence, there is an external validity. But if I say all students from all different cultures have difficulty in using multiple intelligences strategies, then can this really be generalized? I was not specific on the body of students from the cultural variety that I researched. Hence, the generalizability might be questionable, because if someone from a Hispanic background or an Arabic background might say, well, but then the students from this background really don't feel this way, and they might interact with multiple intelligences methods. Or maybe if I say just all Hispanic students cannot use multiple intelligences, well, someone from the same background might say, but really I can't generalize this for all schools in all Hispanic areas, because Puerto Ricans are different from Mexicans. And not only that, in Mexico, upper level students are different from students in poverty. With their cultural backgrounds, they have different cultural dogma, for example. So my internal validity with all the details that I provide leads to good highlighted generalizability. Hence, internal and external validity are matching together, if that makes sense. So we just discussed this. I'm not going to waste your time in extra detail on this. Now, reliability. Internal reliability refers to the extent that data collection, analysis, and interpretation are consistent under the same conditions. And so you are describing in details to catch the internal validity, right? But you really have to make sure that the conditions are consistent. There's nothing, if anything happened midway of your data collection, you'll have to report this. A specific environment, a specific factor that really might hinder the process. Students are very tired, rainy day, exams all day, whatever condition that happened midway, you need to report this in order to make sure that you are reporting internal validity, reliability, and that result is reliable in that sense. Also, it's important, and I always say this to my students, when you're writing your research, make sure that you're talking about yourself. Don't say the data will be collected. No, you're going to say, I will collect data. Teachers will be interviewed. No, I will interview teachers. This use of the first person singular ensures reliability, that if you say, I am interviewing, and then in other part data will be collected, well, who's collecting the data? Is it still you? So if someone reading and reviewing your research, they might have this question of who's really collecting the data, who's really interviewing, who's really doing that. So always talking about yourself doing this reassures the reliability of the research and the consistency of the process. Now, what if you are doing all of that, but someone else is helping you? You have to say that. So I will write the research questions, but a colleague who has accessibility to these kinds of teachers will be interviewing them. Now that shows that there is a reliability. But if it's you, then you have to say that it's you in order to ensure reliability. External reliability deals with the issue of whether or not independent researchers can replicate the studies, the same or similar settings with consistent results. So again, when you report any conditions, then it makes me believe that, oh, I can do it. It's just that because of the situation here, it didn't work out. But for my situation, if I don't have this condition, it will still work out. This report of consistency and any kind of condition ensures that external reliability is valid because I really can replicate the study. Okay, again, ask any question if any part of this wasn't clear for you. Good description of procedures and conditions is necessary to replicate a research, and reliability is necessary characteristics for validity. So reliability and validity makes it a credible research. As to reinsure that this is a credible research, you have to make sure that it's empirical, systematic, but not only that, you have to make sure that it's reliable and valid by following the conditions of what is a reliable and what is a valid research. When you're writing, it's very important the language that you use and the details that you use increases or decreases the validity and reliability of your research. Now, what are the different forms of research? There is, and I don't want to confuse you with too many details, but really there are applied research and there are basic research. The basic research is a research that is very theoretical in essence, very philosophical. And I have an example here for you to explain it more. If I ask the question of I want to study how students learn in Hispanic culture or in African American background or Middle Eastern background. So how students learn, this philosophical and theoretical question is called a basic research, because you are not in the intention of giving me a list of how actually students learn, but you're looking at the situational and positional and psychological influences or impacts that actually put a specific student or with a specific culture and specific gender or any kind of background in a position of learning in a specific way. So this tendency to study cultures or languages without giving direct list of answers, then it's a basic research, which is usually the well-known kind of research that we do in academia. Okay, when we come to applied research is very practical. Okay, I want the best practices of teaching African American students, or the best practices of teaching Hispanic students, or best practices of teaching students from Middle Eastern background. This best practices, this word gives an indication that I'm going to give you a list of, right? This list of direct, immediate solutions and list for solution is called applied research. But basic research is more philosophical. It makes us think. And usually, any best practice or applied research starts from a basic research. I increase questions and highlight problems in about a specific topic or in a specific field. I study it and collect data and see what's going on. But then an applied researcher comes and say, well, based on this, I think this is what we need to do. So nothing is more important than the other, and nothing is less than the other. It's just that this one maybe heavily uses the scientific research procedures and steps, and maybe doesn't give us a direct list of answers, versus the applied research, it might not use the well-known scientific research steps and procedure, but it gives a direct answer. So it depends on why are we, and again, this is an important question, why are you conducting this research? Gives an overall umbrella of the way you're going to write your research. Okay. Here are the misconceptions, and I just discussed this. One is better than the other, one is complex than the other. This is not true. Each one has its own uniqueness in design and in results. It's just that which one do I want right now? That makes the difference. Also, in addition to the applied and basic research, there is a third category which is called evaluative research or evaluation research. And many administrators really like to use this kind of research because they want to look at specific phenomena and then have results based on the situation. So, for example, students are having results in this assessment with a specific percentage. So I look at all the percentages of the students with the different students' backgrounds, and I collect the data here. But I'm going to provide an answer because I need an answer to the teachers. How can I improve these results? So that's an evaluative, where I'm surveying teachers or I'm collecting data from a specific place, but then I want to provide a direct answer right now with a list of action that needs to be done in the classroom. Now, what you are going to learn in this course and in your final practicum class or the thesis class is going to be an action research. This action research is kind of a mix of applied and basic research with a literature review. So you are not only talking about the problem and collecting the literature that tackles the problem and your opinion about the problem, but you're actually going to regularly and empirically going to the field and collect data and find and interpret the data with specific results, and then at the end report the results to have specific solutions. So action research is a good combination of all of these categories that we've discussed. Maybe not necessarily an evaluative unless you discussed an evaluation of a situation in your narrative, but otherwise it's more of the basic and applied categories with a good strong literature review. So action research is that combination of action and a research, scientific research. Okay, so finished why research, finished what is a good scientific research, and then the third is what are the different designs in that we're going to study, or in general, what are the different designs of research. We have qualitative research, quantitative research, and a mixed method. The nature of the core, which is qualitative and quantitative, are completely different. You can combine these two components in one and make it a mixed method if your research requires one piece of statistical data analysis. You'll add the quantitative piece, but your question is really explorational, which is a qualitative piece, or the opposite. Your research nature is really experimental. You're experimenting a specific topic with statistics, but there is a narrative that you need to add and discuss, which is adding that qualitative piece, which makes it a mixed method. So in nature, these two are completely different, and it's up to you to put it in a mixed method. Now, I don't want you to get overwhelmed now with the specific differences of each one of them, because you're really going to understand it once we get to the modules. If I go to our course here, you'll find it's divided by the steps. We finished the introductory part. We're here now in the process of or initiation. We're understanding the meanings. And then next week, we're going to discuss how to write a statement of a problem and how to write your questions. And you're going to actually pick questions that you're going to write, and we'll practice together how to write these questions. And then you're going to pick a statement of a problem, and you're going to write your problem, and all of us are going to share and read each other's. It teaches us this way. We learn from reading each other's. Please don't be shy and don't feel that someone is evaluating you, because your points, you're going to get the 4 points based on your submission, not based on, oh, but I didn't do it perfect. It's a process. All of us are sharing this process. Some of us get it right away. Some of us take some time. This doesn't mean that one is smarter and the other is not, but more like I am taking my time in digesting the process, and someone else did it already before. This someone who did it already before or got it might really have a good input to add to you and to me in finding out a better way to explain it. So nothing is going to be deducted from you because you didn't do it perfectly, but it will be deducted if you didn't do it and if you shied away from experimenting with us. And if you notice, I write exploration. This means that I'm not expecting from you to have a perfect entry. I'm expecting from you to have an entry. I'm expecting from you to explore. Once you explored, you got your points. If you did not explore at all, then you're not going to get the points. Now, learning it or not is the process, and this muddy process that we're going to go back and forth in our discussions. Hey, you didn't do, I think you're missing this piece. Why don't you add this? I think it will be stronger. Oh, great. Thank you very much. I'll add it. I'll consider it. Or, you know what? I think you're right, but I really don't want to add it here. I'm going to add it in another piece. So we're taking each other's opinions, and your input is not going to take or add a grade for your colleague, because your colleague already got his 4 points once he submitted an entry. Get it? So it's fun to get in that muddy area together and entangle it and try to figure it out together and think together, and what is missing here? Let's elaborate and edit. Let's elaborate and edit. So you'll find in the discussion board, you put an entry, right? But then maybe at the end of your thread of that entry, you'll have a final product because of the edits that I provided or a colleague provided. So honestly, I think it's best if we have the most edits as much as we can, because you're going to take this final edited piece towards your final proposal, right? Remember, as I told you, the question, the problem, the literature review, and the methodologies, all of that is going to put together and submit in your final paper. So this muddy process is adding to your elaborated final paper. So you really want to have as many edits as you can, and you guys try to give each other as many edits as you can. If you think it's great, then say it's great. If you think it's great but need some edits, please go ahead and give your input to your colleague. But again, it's not going to influence the grade, because once you have an entry, you have your 4 points. So here, this is the problem, the questions, and then we're going to discuss the literature review, and this takes away the first step right there. Okay, so now we understand the first step. Now when we come to module 2, the steps and the elements are going to be a little bit different because of the quantitative format or the qualitative format. Once you get in this muddy area for qualitative and understand the terminologies and the components and different languages that we use after the readings, of course, and after the lectures, when we get to quantitative and I explain it to you, you'll see the difference. And then after we finish both, I'll compare it to you when we actually understand. So I don't want you to worry about. And then here's the final, the mixed method. You're not going to have an entry for the mixed method, but really more of understanding. And then the final module is the final component, which is the conclusion. So in here, I don't want you to worry so much about the differences, but I can roughly tell you that qualitative is more descriptive and quantitative is more number analytics. Okay, practically, in a qualitative research, you are holistically looking at the setting and describing and analyzing what's happening in a natural area. But in quantitative, you really looking at emphasizing on a specific area, cause and effect. What is happening here? Tell me what is happening here, and then what could be the effect of this situation, and then come up with a final product. In qualitative, it might be just analytical product, but in the quantitative, it's more numerical product. In a qualitative research, it's flexible and you can change things, but in quantitative, you really looking at your hypothesis and comparing everything to the hypothesis that you set at the beginning, and you can either say that the final results matches with your hypothesis or not. So the flexibility is not really there. And again, don't worry about understanding the difference, and that's why I'm going really quick on this piece, because I feel it's just gonna overwhelm you more than make you understand anything, because you didn't read it and you didn't have the details of the lectures. So, but this is just a rough introduction for the different designs. In qualitative, it's very important to understand that you are exploring a phenomenon. Something came up and then you're just wondering why or how this is happening, right? But in a quantitative, you are determined to experiment. See, the word experiment is more kind of tangible results. You're finding relationships, and these are very important terminologies that you want to keep in mind. At the end, this is a visual of what we've discussed in the difference between these two. Qualitative, here are the kinds of qualitative that we're going to discuss, and then the quantitative types of quantitative we're going to discuss. But again, please don't worry about this section now, here inward, because it's too early. I just want you to roughly understand that there's qualitative, quantitative, and mixed. Qualitative and quantitative are the core research designs, and mixed is how we can mix both of them and why do we mix in both of them. During the semester, this is all what we're going to be doing, understanding the difference between qualitative and quantitative. Okay, with this, I end my introductory session for this week, week 1 content-wise, but week 2 in our semester. You are expected to start on a Tuesday and end on a Monday. Pace yourself. You'll have the discussion question on the discussion board. Yes, you are required to do it by submitted. The final time is Monday midnight, before midnight. But work on it. Again, I understand how busy life is, but I just don't want you to wait until Sunday and then dump in something on Monday and you think that you're done. It is not about a grade. This is something that's going to stay with you for some time. Learning about research is not about a grade. It's about a skill that you want to teach yourself, to use to write a proposal, to use to write your final thesis for the graduate program that you're at, and a skill to write a research in general if you want to publish and if you want to continue your studies in PhD or other stuff. So that's how it's different, this course, from any other courses. It's not a content you finish, you have a grade and you go. It's a skill, so you need to digest the content to get the skill, or to gain the skill in order to stay with you for a longer time. All right, it was a pleasure to video our first lecture, and hopefully it will be a good start for our understanding